I'm back with another video on the Brompton G line. It looks like the topic never dies. I have already done several videos looking at the G line from various angles and comparing this particular model to at least a half dozen different bikes, even other Bromptons. What I want to do with this video is to take a look at the Brompton G, and its main competitors, which is basically the Birdy GT. And I think there is a reason the Brompton is called a G as opposed to the GT, but I will get back to that at the end of the video. I just want to say as an introduction that a lot of people have seen those videos, and as you can expect, since my videos on the Brompton and anything else are not influenced by anybody financing me, I'm not getting any money from either Brompton or anybody else. In fact, Brompton would never even give me a bike before release, given the harsh reviews I have been publishing on their product. So there has been the complaint that I haven't owned these bikes. Not true. I have owned them for many years, and obviously not necessarily every configuration. I haven't owned the G line. Not many people have, to be honest. Brompton has given this over to a bunch of people who are pretty reliable in not criticizing it much at all. They will say things like, oh, my mind was blown away from the 20-inch wheels, from the hydraulic disc brakes, like as if these technologies were anything new. These technologies have been on the market, specifically on the Birdy bikes, for well over a decade. So none of this is new. In fact, mostly everything that Brompton has been doing for the last decade are weakened, cheapened copies of what the DIY community has been doing for years and decades. If you get my book, you can read the details on how I configured my own Brompton, which is still the fastest of any Bromptons anywhere. If somebody believes they have a faster Brompton, you are welcome to come out and we'll do a race somewhere in New York City. But I doubt that anybody will volunteer, because I haven't even seen a road bike that can catch up. So it's probably not going to happen with the Brompton, and it's not going to happen with a 32-pound Brompton G line either. So let's look at a comparison of what we have here. First of all, there is this wheel size issue that people are saying the 20-inch wheels are the best compared to the 18-inch wheels of the Birdy. The Birdy has slightly smaller wheels, and I'm not trying to underplay the difference of 2 inches, but one of the reasons why I switched over from the Birdy to the classic Brompton frame is because of the smaller wheels and the lower center of gravity they give me. 20-inch wheels give you a very high center of gravity, and I'm not sure if there's much benefit in doing so. And I'm going to show you an example from a totally different section here. Let's look at the Vespa scooter. The 300cc Vespas approach a speed of 80 miles an hour. Here is what Google has to say about this: 78 miles per hour for the Vespa GTS. So we have Brompton G, Birdy GT, and Vespa GTS. I'm sure the GTS stands for GT Sport, and it's a beautiful ride, but look at the specs. The rims themselves are only 12 inches but 3 inches in width. So these are really teeny tiny wheels. I mean, look at the wheels. These are teeny tiny. They are about the size of the guy's shoes in diameter, and they can handle a speed of 80 miles an hour on the highway with security. Why? Because of the width. This tire width is roughly 5.25, 5.5 inches in width. So these are really small diameter tires, but they are very wide. I could show you bigger bikes than the Vespa. I mean, we have something as big as the Honda Goldwing, and that can do speeds way faster than a Vespa on the highway with comfort. And the wheels are not even 18 inches. That's what the Birdy has. So I would say having 20-inch wheels is not necessarily bad. I'm not saying it is bad, but it is just not necessary. So as far as wheel sizes are concerned, I don't see an advantage to getting the Brompton. The other things, if you look at the hydraulic disc brakes, the shifters, everything is pretty much the same. I don't think the Birdy is gonna give you much of anything extra, but it's also not inferior. They both both the Brompton G and the Birdy GT will give you decent braking. They have hydraulic discs. It's about the same. Birdy's, it's pretty much because of the Birdy customers. They used to sell stuff with the Shimano hub. I don't see that as often as I used to see it. They do exist. There is such a thing as a Birdy with a Shimano hub or something like that. Some of these bikes are still sold. There are so many flavors of Birdy, it's hard to keep track of them. People are modifying this bike left and right depending upon who you buy it from. And of course, the king of all Birdies, the roll-off, is always going to be available. So if you want to have a hub gear version of it, you can certainly get it. The problem with the roll-off is obviously that the Birdy roll-off is way more expensive than the Brompton. So I think it's not a fair comparison. I would say the gear shifting, I'm slightly partial to what the Brompton is doing just because it's for off-road riding. It's a more secure setup to have a hub gear as opposed to the derailleur. But on the other hand, the derailleur is way lighter, and it's no explanation to the weight difference between the two bikes, but it is lighter. So in that sense, I guess it's up to you. It's your choice. Do you want to spend more time maintaining a derailleur and get the benefit of a lighter package, or do you want something heavier but more durable? And here we are getting to a place where the two bikes are vastly different. The rear suspension is the same, there's not much of a difference, but the front suspension, this on the Birdy, is vastly above most anything out there except for the Moulton. The Moulton has decent front suspension, but it dips up and down, whereas the Birdy converts that energy to a diagonal, mostly back and forth kind of emotion, which I got a chance to enjoy for 12 years on my Birdy. It's really something to experience. And I'm not even saying that you definitely have to own any of these bikes to talk about them. I mean, how many military experts talk about the F-35 airplane or any of the bombers, even though they themselves have never flown any of them? It's more about having had experience, a lot of it, with various military hardware and understanding the specs so that you understand what you're looking at. The same way an American expert doesn't even have any chance to look at the latest Russian technology because it's secret, and yet they talk about it all the time. So what's the basis of it? Have they owned any of that Swan nuclear bomber, or what? Is it their daily right to work? No. It's just that they have eons of experience looking at military stuff and they understand the specs and what they mean. That's all that it means. So I would say for suspension, the Birdy is way better than the Brompton. For weight, we are looking at a difference of some 31 pounds, 31 and a half pounds for the lightest of the G lines, which is really heavy. And the Birdy is advertising something around 22 pounds. That's a 9.5 pound advantage to the Birdy. That is huge. That is a monstrous difference between the two. I mean, the weight difference is nearly 50%. So the Brompton is nearly 50% heavier than the Birdy. And then we look at the frame. The frame, as I've said this before, the Brompton G line is squashed. It looks like you got hit by a truck from behind and the whole thing is now warped up here. Look at the actual classic Brompton. How much more elegant it is, how much more harmonious the design is. I mean, this warp here is just not looking good. There's a high center of gravity, and also the quality of the frame. The Brompton frame is very sturdy. It's a tubular frame, which is it's definitely much more primitive than what you would get from the Birdy, which is a state-of-the-art molded monocoque frame. It is much more rigid, no question about it. It's also a shorter wheelbase, which contributes to the rigidness of it, and it has no joints in it, so it's way more rigid than what you're gonna get from the G line. But the G line is still a solid steel frame. It's still hand built, so you're not gonna have a problem like I hear from so many former recovering Dayhan owners, I should say, who had the Dayhan frame break on them. If I had $1,000 for all the broken Dayhan frames I've heard about, I would probably not need another gig. Let's just put it that way. So you do get a solid frame, but it's no match to what the Birdy has to offer. And then there is the price. The current British price. We don't have American price prices, but the British price for the G line is around $3,200. That is a significant difference from the Birdy. Birdy starts at $2,800 in US. Is this an earth-shaking difference? No, but you're getting a way better product for what you want to do for less money. For $300, $350, $400, it makes a difference. Finally, some people argued about the bag. What's the deal with the bag? Let me show you the bag. So the Birdy has options to load bags. In fact, you can even load a Brompton bag if you want to. You can get attachments for not a lot of money. And as far as the front pannier is concerned, it can hold 2 standard bags on each side. And the pannier attachment is standard from Birdy. It's not very expensive at all. So you can put a ton of bags in the front. You can attach it just at the bottom of the steering column, like with the Brompton, the same thing. Or you can attach it to the wheel. Obviously, a wheel attachment is going to feel completely different from as opposed to attaching it directly to the monocoque frame, but the choice is yours. The fold. We want to talk about the fold. One advantage of the old Brompton was the incredibly compact fold. There's no question that there's absolutely no bike in the world with the right characteristics of a Brompton that folds as neatly as this. And you can roll it, and you can even keep the bag on it as you're rolling it. So it's great. But as far as this monstrous 20-inch wheel wraparound sort of imitation of the original, it just doesn't work for me. It's actually much bulkier than what you would get from the Birdy, depending upon which fold you're looking at. I mean, this is the standard Birdy fold, and it is actually more compact, although the way it is, it does not roll. You want to roll it? Yes, you can. There is a Riese and Müller made rear carrier that can have wheels attached to it, and then you can just load this whole folded thing on top of it, and you can actually roll it around. It's probably not going to handle a bag the same way as a Brompton does. So it's compact, but it's not a Brompton. Brompton has a slight advantage there, but I think it's still just a gross looking, really monstrous fold what they have created, and it's not necessary because I don't think most people would want to go shop on the way back from the trail. But even if you do, you can fold either of these bikes, even the Moulton, anything. You can disassemble and fold, and you can put it into one of the big shopping carts at any supermarket, and you can still get by with the Birdy fold just as well. So this is about the rolling, how you can roll it around, how you can fold it. I think there's a lot of competence in what the Birdy is doing, but it is obviously not intended to be a shopping bike. So when it comes to comparing the Brompton G to the Birdy GT, the reason it's a G is because it's not really a GT level. It has the G, but it doesn't have the T. What do I mean by this? It can be used for off-roading and as a dirt bike, mountain riding, and unpaved trails, and even commuting. If you live in an area as rough as New York City, then you could just use it for commuting as well. But the Birdy would give you a better deal. The Birdy would give you a much lighter, less expensive, better suspended, more rigid deal. Now, another comparison I wanted to make was, what about the classic Brompton? What about you getting a steel frame Brompton and then going to Kinetics, spend another $2,000 on it and get something like this? This one has smaller wheels than the Birdy. It does not have a suspension as cool as the Birdy's, and also the frame is not as cool as the Birdy's because it's not monocoque. But on the other hand, it is a shorter, stiffer frame than the G line, and it does have lower center of gravity because the wheels are only 16 1/4. Not to mention that if you go to Kinetics and you're willing to spend extra money, you can even do this belt drive setup, which is something even Riese and Müller is not offering. In fact, I don't know anybody in this class that offers a bicycle with a belt drive, which is absolutely fantastic. The fact that you can have that. And I wanted to show you the fold of some of these Kinetics modified classic Brompton. This is the way the belt drive looks when it's folded. It's actually quite compact, and it's very neat, and you can totally fold it. You see how it folds in the back. And of course, the Kinetics setup would give you the opportunity to install a roll-off. In fact, they will ship you the roll-off installed into the wheel if you pay for it. Same thing with the disc brakes. They do some pre-installations as well. And so when I compare the Birdy to the classic Brompton, I would say it's even. The Birdy does have the advantage that you get a very cool bike right out of the box. You just need to send the money, charge the credit card, and then they send it to you. You don't need to attach anything else. I mean, small things. Some people would want to attach a rear carrier like we saw on some other bikes. You might want to do that. So, but for the most part, you don't need to modify much of anything. On the other hand, the Brompton Classic frame allows you a lower center of gravity, a more compact fold, which you can do even with fat tires. These are the regular tires, but even with fat tires, the fold is pretty much the same, which is remarkable. So, and the aesthetics are great. Fold is very compact, very quick. I would say it's even. The classic Brompton upgraded with kinetics is not inferior to the Birdy. It is only different. What is inferior is the Brompton G, and that's why it's called G instead of GT.
I'll be back.